edition. Okay, so I was very, very excited to come to a bookshop today where they have recently opened a cafe. Last time I was here, and I realized that they'd opened a cafe because I've been coming to this bookshop for years and years. When I realized they were opening a cafe, I said, when is the cafe open? And they said it's open every day. Unfortunately, I've come here today and there's a sign up saying the cafe is closed, sadly, but the decor is beautiful. They got lots of good books to look at, and it's a rainy day, so it's a cute spot to be anyways. Half the reason I was so excited about this particular bookshop cafe opening, and this is somehow a channeled message I'm being drawn and asked to bring to the collective in this conversation, is that there is another bookshop directly next door. I'm not going to say which ones they are yet. And that bookshop I also used to go to. I used to actually go to the cafe more than I went to the bookshop, because the bookshop isn't laid out very comfortably, especially for a neurodiverse person. And the last time I was there, I found like the full edition of a specific author, okay, a specific author who, from what I understand, can be quite aggressive when it comes to people talking about them publicly. But this particular author has made a series of books that you may or may not know of that basically inspired a large group, okay, a cultured group, let's say. And should I just say it? Should I just mention it at this stage in the quote-unquote game? This particular series of fantasy books ended up creating a cult following that ended up in a very organized religion, organized group, right? And although the bookshop next door is a secondhand, they specialize in secondhand books, I was really surprised to see this collection of books written by this particular man that ended up creating a very large, wealthy religious organization, a cultured one, right? I was very surprised to see them on sale there. Part of the reason I was so surprised to see them on sale there is because these two bookshops are actually about 2 blocks away from a center set up for that religious group, okay? It's got science in the name, right? And it's like a weird mix of technology, self-development, organized peer pressure, and like technology, okay? That's all I need. I think you get it. I think those who understand who I'm talking about, what I'm talking about, you'll understand. And so I basically said to the person that was sitting behind the counter at the bookshop, not the bookshop I'm sitting in, but the one that's next door, and I basically said, are you aware of the stories that have come out of survivors of this group that is linked to this series of books that you have on sale here? And the person was like really rude, really snappy, really like cagey is what I would say about the conversation. And I wouldn't have been so concerned about it, because the thing is, they're presented as like fantasy books. I wouldn't have been so concerned about it if we weren't around the corner from one of the biggest centers, one of the biggest well-funded centers where, from what I understand, people from overseas come and stay. They send people from other places of this organization, from other centers around the world, okay? And for some reason, I'm just being drawn to share that with you. And I'd be really interested if any of you actually have the guts to write comments under my videos. That'd be super cute. Guts, inspiration, feel drawn to, feel inspired to, or whatever. I'd be really interested to know what you think about hypothetically selling books that have been exposed to be linked to a group that harms people. And we're at a stage in the collective journey where it's very much like manipulation of what is fantasy, what is entertainment. This has been a download that's coming through. What is entertainment, what is fantasy, and what is the responsibility of, for example, somebody secondhand selling books that are linked to a group that has been proven to be harmful. And obviously I'm not part of that group, I'm not part of that spiritual group, I'm not part of that religious group, I'm not part of that cultured group. But I do know that there's been a lot of people risking their lives, risking their connections to family, risking their careers, coming out and whistleblowing and speaking against this specific group. I think it's also really fascinating that a book that is based like a sci-fi book, that is based like a fantasy book, that it could end up becoming something that people lose their families to, dedicate their whole lives to. Like some really wild, crazy stories about what happens in the centers connected to these specific books. I think it's also interesting that this morning I was drawn to share a story about a dream, a dream channeling that I recently experienced that's connected to content creators, platforms. And then of course in this space, this realm of divination, we often draw on metaphors, on archetypes, on folklores that also blur the line between quote-unquote reality and fantasy. Then of course there's the whole fantasy thing of like, you know, closet cases and closeted sexual desires, sensual desires, expressions of sexuality that can also be linked to the subject matter of fantasy. What is it to listen to a tarot reader? What is it to watch a content creator that makes you feel good about yourself, that comforts you, that gives you soothing words, that might have a sweet voice or a tender face? What is this new age of spiritual guidance being channeled through tech spaces that also blurs the line between entertainment and quote-unquote real life? And then what is real life? Is life but a dream? Is life but a fantasy book? Is life but a sci-fi? Or do we use sci-fis to talk about things we're quote-unquote not allowed to talk about in society? Just some thoughts, just some channeled messages coming through from me at Codes of Harmony. Oh yeah, and comment, like, share, blah, blah, blah. Thanks so much to everybody. Thank you so much to everybody that supports this space and is open to these conversations that may or may not challenge the norm. So much love from Codes of Harmony. Oh yeah, and this is completely unfunded, unsponsored, just doing this of my own volition, just my own opinion, you know.